might just be a Black Bill Gates in the making. But if you look at the statistics, you're probably not. America is one of the wealthiest countries in the history of the world. No joke. But most people wouldn't believe it if you told them. Why? Because most of us will never see that wealth. The top 0.1% of Americans have as much wealth as the bottom 90% of Americans combined, which doesn't leave much for the rest of us. So who are the majority of these yacht-riding, sports car-driving, super wealthy elite? I'll give you a hint. Who has historically held the most power in our society? Is it old white guys? Yes! Everybody loses! Out of the 540 billionaires in the United States, just 3 are Black. Hey, Oprah! I see you, girl! So why are the super wealthy super white? Well, that explanation could take all day, but let's look at a few reasons why we have a racial wealth gap in America. First, our education system is still separate and still unequal. 60 years after Brown versus the Board of Education desegregated schools, more than 2 million Black students still attend schools where 90% of the student body is made up of people of color. And these schools are more likely to have less experienced, low-paid teachers who are less likely to be certified. One reason that schools in communities of color are so neglected is that unlike many other Western countries, our federal government provides very little educational funding. Instead, property taxes are the main source of school funding, and that's where the problem comes in. Let me explain. Take a community filled with million-dollar mansions. The high property taxes paid from those communities funnel into the schools around them. This gives them the money they need for everything from new computers to field trips and certified teachers. Then take a community filled with lower income housing. A much smaller amount of money is being funneled into the schools in those communities, leaving many students attending schools that are literally falling apart, with fewer resources to invest in extracurriculars, books, teachers, and all of the other resources needed to prepare students for college and high-paying jobs. But climbing into the 1% is not just about doing well in school. Gaining wealth starts with property. And home is where the prejudice is. Let's look at the national median value of 3 houses. The white homeowner's house is worth $85,800, the Black homeowner's $50,000, and the Latino homeowner's $48,000. Why is there this huge gap? Well, because homes in white neighborhoods are valued higher than in neighborhoods where people of color live. You can trace this back to the passing of the National Housing Act of 1934, which created residential security maps to outline areas in big cities that were safe for real estate investment. Do you see where this is headed? Housing discrimination? Yes! Still losing. Existing neighborhoods of scary Black folk were redlined, meaning that people in those areas were refused home or business loans because they lived in an area deemed to be a financial risk. For prospective Black property owners, this was terrible. If you didn't have the cash to buy up front, there was no way to get a loan for a home or business. To make things worse, Blacks were all but barred from buying homes in white neighborhoods, either by restrictive racial covenants, which forbade white people from selling property to Black folks, or because of threats of violence. So home values declined, driving down the money collected from property taxes, which denied people of color higher quality educations, leading to fewer people of color in high-paying jobs and deepening the racial wage gap. And the vicious cycle of oppression was born, where it became incredibly difficult for Black families to amass wealth over generations, which is important because, thanks to compound interest, old money is a lot of money. Why are white people the wealthiest people in our country? Basically because they always have been. Have your parents ever loaned you a small amount of money, like $10, $50? How about $1 million? Yeah. Mine neither. But that's the small loan that Donald Trump was given from his father that went on to build his billion-dollar empire. And it's not just the famously wealthy. Lots of businesses get their start from family loans or investments. The truth is that old money has helped a lot of people build their fortunes. Many of the richest people in America had families that amassed their wealth 70, 100, or as much as 200 plus years ago. Like Jacqueline Mars and Forrest Mars Jr., both worth $23.4 billion. Their family made a killing by developing the Mars candy empire in the early 1900s. Or the DuPont family, who came from French nobility and started the DuPont Gunpowder Company in 1802. Now it's a 200-year-old conglomerate, and the family is still one of the richest in the country, worth $15 billion. So why isn't there more old money in the Black community? Well, 60 years ago, we couldn't even sit at the same lunch counter as white people, let alone start businesses or earn anywhere near as much money as them. And don't forget, only 200 years ago, we were considered property and not people in this country. Still not convinced? Consider this. The typical Black household has just 6% of the wealth of the typical white household. Now do you see it? Oh, I do. There are so many reasons why there's a racial wealth gap, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. People of color are routinely discriminated against in terms of labor markets, loans, and wages, and we're not even getting into the prison system. I don't know about you, but I don't need to be a billionaire to be happy in life. But I do believe that we should have an equal opportunity to thrive, regardless of our race or upbringing. And to do that, it's time we fight to create a country that doesn't just work for the 1%, but for all of us. What do you think might help close the racial wage gap? Tell us in the comments below, and we'll see you next week right here on Decoded.
Hey, what's your name?
Cindy.
Wow, that's so exotic. What part of Asia is that from?
I'm from Texas.
Ah, namaste.